Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we're going to be pursuing the Percy Jackson review series. And in today's video we're going to be reviewing the last book and the fifth book in the series, The Last Olympian. This is the last book in the series, so it's been a long journey. We've read all four books so far, and in the previous book we got to know a little bit about Kronos' uprising, and Luke kind of gave up his body for Kronos, and we also understood what it means to get ready for battle. And Camp Half-Blood already had like a mini battle right before the ending of the book. And in this book, Percy is about to turn 16, and as you guys know, the great prophecy says that a child of the three main gods will either be the reason for the uprising of Olympus or the downfall of Olympus. So it's a lot of pressure on Percy because he knows he's 16 already and the prophecy is gonna be true. And this doesn't really apply to Talia because she joined the Hunters of Artemis in the second or third book. So everything just lies back down on him. So this book is pretty obvious that Percy is gonna have to go to war with Kronos or defeat Kronos, because that's basically what the prophecy has told him to do. So in this book, Kronos has taken over Luke's body, and he plans to attack Mount Olympus, which is basically a floor in the Empire State in New York. Around the beginning of the book, Percy and Charles Beckendorf, they try to destroy Princess Andromeda, which is Kronos' ship. But in that process, Charles sacrifices himself so that Percy can safely escape, which is already one of the first sacrifices not one of the first, but one of the many sacrifices in this series. And this really helps Percy continue his journey, so we respect what he did. And this happens around the beginning, so we see at this point how hard it might become to overtake Kronos. And we don't know if Percy is ready for this challenge yet, although we've seen him get ready in the previous books with multiple trials and challenges. And we know that Percy always gets his way and he always defeats the monsters at last. But in this book we don't know about Kronos, and maybe Kronos might be too powerful. And knowing that war is coming, Percy enters the river Styx to get the curse of Achilles. And that basically what that is that it's a curse or a boon that makes it so that you're invincible except for one spot. And for Achilles, that one spot was his heel, but he died either way because someone shot his heel with the arrow. But for Percy, it was somewhere in his chest, I believe. And this really helps him because although he has the skills, but this is like a double reinforcement for him, so he doesn't really have to worry about getting harmed during the war. And we know that he also gets healed by water, so that's also good. So this kind of builds up a little bit of hope for the reader that Percy might actually have a chance. And around the middle of the book, we see that while the gods fight Typhon, the big Titan, Percy, Annabeth, Grover, and Nico, and basically the entire camp, Half-Blood, they defend Manhattan from Kronos' army of monsters and titans. And in this defending, what's really different is that Percy leads this defense of the city, and he's basically the leader or the person who guides all of them. So this is really a growth for Percy because this shows his character development and his leadership, and really proves him as a hero, because now he can really lead a group of people or heroes to be. And this really shows you that Percy has developed as a character. He's not just a kid who just came to Camp Half-Blood and is figuring out what's going on, but he's really developed over these 5 books. And maybe the prophecy might be true, maybe he's able to do it. And this way they kind of keep defending the city even though they're really outnumbered. Then we see around almost ending of the book, we see that we have a chapter about Annabeth's connection to Luke, because when Annabeth came to Camp Half-Blood, Luke was someone special to her, and he was like a big brother and protected her, and he was kind of like, she trusted him a lot. But his turnover to the Titans really defeated that, but Annabeth never thought about Luke that way. So this really becomes important because she believes that he still has a good side in him, And this helps Percy and then after that Nico also helps Percy understand the curse of Achilles and basically what's his prophecy. Then after this is done around the ending, we see the final battle. And this book is basically nothing too special. It's not a quest. It's just a book about the battle and how Percy and Camp Half-Blood defeats Kronos and his allies. So during the final battle, Percy realizes that defeating Kronos isn't about strength alone, but remembering Luke's powerful promise to Annabeth to keep her protected, um, Percy decides to trust Luke to make the right choice. And this is really a turn from what we really thought Percy would do, because here we see that Percy is trusting his enemy completely, but this isn't what we expected him to do. We expected him to defeat his enemy and not trust Luke. But in this situation, Percy really puts his trust in Annabeth, that she thinks that Luke has a good side, so he might actually have a good side. And we see later on what happens because of this decision. And after this, Luke he decides that he decides to sacrifice himself, and he defeats himself in his weak spot so that Kronos really dies. And of course this is nice because what Percy did, and he trusted Luke, that really came true and his trust was correct. But this really makes the reader think, why would Luke do that? Because the prophecy said that the person who would defeat the Kronos, or the downfall of Olympus, or the rising of Olympus, would be one of the main three gods, but Luke isn't one of the main three gods. So we really see that although the prophecy says something, but it might not always be true. Like, of course some parts are true, like Percy has had a very chaotic time at Camp Half-Blood in this entire story, but we see in the end the real hero was the real hero in this story looks like it was Luke, where he sacrificed himself. But if you go deeper into it, you realize that it's Percy, because Percy really trusted Luke instead of trying to kill him or directly go into battle with Kronos, which he did, but that wouldn't have worked out either way, no matter how they tried. But in the end, it was his trust that really saved them, and Kronos ultimately has a downfall, and it's the end of the Titans, which never happened. So yay, the book is over, and the Titans are officially down, and Percy really proved himself to the prophecy and everybody else that he can really do it. And he proved not just it wasn't strength that helped him win, but it was his thought and trust that really helped him win, because in the end it's what he really showed, it wasn't what he did. So after all of this, it's really the ending of the book, and Percy goes back to camp. And when he goes back, he's called by the gods, and all the gods are pretty proud of their children, and they offer Percy to live forever. But Percy doesn't take this offer, and instead he asks them in return to make it so that every camper at Camp Half-Blood is safe, and all the demigods or the children of the gods are remembered. And this is really a heartwarming moment, and it's really emotional, because we see the entire reason why Luke turned over to the Titans was because he thought that campers weren't protected by the gods, or gods were ignoring them. And this is really what defines Percy as a hero, because instead of taking something for himself, he decided he didn't want this to happen again, and he didn't want another kid to become like Luke, who turned over to the bad side just because his parents were ignoring him. And this is really not self-centered of Percy, and he really thought before he took that. And in return, it also impressed the gods, and the gods fulfill that because it's a good thing. And this is really the closing of the book, and the series is ending, and Percy reveals his feelings to Annabeth. And this book really shows you what it means to sacrifice, what it means to make the right decision, and the power of standing up for the people you love and what you really believe. So that's all, guys. We completed another series, Percy Jackson, and before this we did Harry Potter. So if you haven't watched that, go back and watch that, please. And in the next video or the series, we're going to be reviewing my experience at NYLT. Then we're going to be reviewing the Hunger Games. So that's all. Thank you so much for tuning in, and bye.